This is Aapl. Here are your price targets for Thursday. We ended the day at resistance at 193.15. Two standard deviations would take us to roughly 193.29. Above that, and another level of resistance and potential take profit area, 193.78. And at four standard deviations, roughly 194.24. To the south side, takes us to support and a potential buy-in area at 192.31. Below that, at -2 standard deviations and another level of support and a potential buy-in area, 191.32. 190.83. -4 standard deviations takes us to roughly 190.35. Note the gap to the south side at 190 closes at 189.50. RSI is going up. Now to Tesla. Oh, before I go to Tesla, I just want to point out, when you take a look at this, this is support. Note the bounce at support as people buy in and price starts to go up. Support here, and then a bounce all the way to resistance. And you know what happens at resistance. People take their profits and they run. We fall back down to support, grinding up and sideways and back down. Couldn't quite make it up to 2. And then we fall back down. And then when this gap here closed at roughly 194.70, note we closed out at support and then the rip. Now I'm going to take this over to Tesla. When I talked about it yesterday, price was at 256.61. We were at -2 standard deviations, basically close enough to this support line here. And what happens at support? A bounce as people buy the dip. We gapped up. This becomes resistance from down here. We busted through and then we reached 2 standard deviations, where I always say price stays typically within -2 and 2 standard deviations. Anything outside of that is an outlier, a buy or sell signal. So this started to fall down at resistance and then nears support and then the bounce up, and then we grind sideways and down again. And this will turn into resistance. I will mark this out. If you click on the price there and just use your arrow key up and down, I will change the color to black, denoting price. Now, here are your targets. We ended the day at 261.44, up more than 1.5%. This is resistance from down here. So expect price to grind along this line at 262.31, or price can go just sideways this way in a channel. All right, but to the north side from the baseline, where price moves through either to the upside or to the downside, this is what I like to call the resting place. And up here at 265.72 is one target and resistance and a potential take profit area. Lock it in. 267.36 and 269.03. I am in Aapl and Tesla, and I do not plan on selling Tesla until it reaches probably in the 350 to 380. That's way down the road. And then I will re-enter when it crashes. All right, to the south side, 258.97. This is support. I will anticipate a bounce here. 257.34 and 255.64. I talked about these gaps that you see. There are many gaps to the south side, a lot of landmines. We are not in that channel, not in the zone yet. We are in an upward channel. But if we extend this out, see, we're not in the standard deviations that I track. But if you like to go short down the road, we could possibly get there. Or it's a potential buy-in area if you would like to enter for a trade. RSI is at 49. And looking left, note the bounce at support, grinding along this line. This is from here, resistance, but the middle of the trend where price likes to rest. We hit resistance and we fall down and then we gap up. And with this potential gap, I will mark this out so that I know price could eventually drop and fill here. I'm going to turn on my magnet just so I make sure I get a more precise. Sometimes it gets a little wonky there. And I will turn this red because this is a gap to the south side. And when I take a look at this in the big picture, I can quickly see what gapped up and what gapped down and at what price it filled, because those gap fills also become sometimes price targets or levels for me, where price goes back to. And so we've got a bounce here, a bounce here, a bounce here, a bounce here, sell off at resistance, sell off at resistance, and sell off at resistance. Right on cue. And AMD is running. I thought I sold all of it, but I still have shares, and we are at 146 right now. But the next target is 147, 147.97, and 148.84, 145.41, 143.73, 142.89, and 142.03. And I marked this out because that was an old support and resistance line. But AMD is not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you Prudential. And this will be the last one. We ended the day at 103.82. To the north side takes us to resistance and a potential take profit area, 103.99. Price again will either grind and follow this line, or it could drop or just go sideways. And above that takes us to 2 standard deviations where a gap begins at 104.80. It closes out at 3 standard deviations, 105.17, and to the north side of that, 105.58. To the south side, 103.21, 102.81, and 102.42. This is a potential buy zone. And since we're down here, this would be the first potential sell zone. Obviously, many levels in between. If you like to use Fibonacci retracements, trend lines, patterns. I really don't do patterns. I don't do teacup and handle, whatever you call that, bull flag, bear flag. The only pattern I do like to look for is the W pattern. I don't even look at the double tops. I don't look at double bottoms, because if it's a double bottom, I already know that we are at support and it will bounce. Double tops, I already know, is at resistance and it's going to fall. That's just what happens. Now, looking left, support and a bounce to the upside, to resistance. Support and a bounce all along here. And if we are up here, this is resistance. People took their profits, locked in, and it fell down. So the cycle repeats itself. All right, that does it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for subscribing. I got a couple new subscribers over the Christmas weekend, so I just wanted to put out another video to thank you all so much. And I will be doing another video definitely on Friday when I recap the gap and go trades that I talked about on Monday. Have a good Thursday.